production funding for Behind the Headlines is made possible in part by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
1 year in Crosstown, tonight on Behind the Headlines. I'm Eric Barnes, publisher of the Memphis Daily News. Thanks for joining us. I'm joined tonight by Todd Richardson, co-lead of the Crosstown Concourse Project, along with McLean Wilson, the other co-lead on the Crosstown Concourse Project. Welcome back.
Thanks for having us.
Along with Bill Dries, senior reporter with the Memphis Daily News. So it is 1 year next week from the official opening. I think 1 year this weekend, maybe, the 19th. Mm-hmm. So we want to do a show. We were talking a little bit before. This is probably your third time on the show. This is probably your second time over the course of the years. We'll talk a little bit about the history, but you know, it's 1 million square feet, give or take, retail, apartments, offices, a theater that's opening soon, a school that just opened, a 9th grade, soon to be a 4 grades high school. But what have you learned? I mean, from this last year of officially being open. I'll start with Todd. What have you learned, good and bad?
You know, I'm an art historian at the University of Memphis, and so I had not done commercial real estate development before, so I learned a lot. But the main thing I think that I've learned is the transition, you know, between the chapters of development and construction and getting the place, the village built, and then transitioning into operations. And you know, the whole Better Together vertical urban village concept sounds great on paper.
And then people
arrive, and then people have to try to be better together. And sometimes people just want to do what they want to do, and not in a good or bad. It's just human nature. And so living together and the operations of it has been great, and it's been a challenge. It's not something you do and walk away from. It's something you do and you continue to do, and you continue to change and adapt. So that's probably the biggest thing, is the transition from development and construction to operations.
I mean, it's partly, I mean, the expectations couldn't have been higher on you all, right? I mean, I'll turn to you. I mean, it was kind of crazy. I mean, at first it seemed like a pipe dream. At first it seemed crazy. We were joking at first, then it was going to be a kind of a big arts commune, which made no sense. And then it's building and everyone's getting very excited and there's construction. And the expectations were, I think, off the charts, right?
Yeah. It is interesting thinking about it. We first started thinking about the project in 3 different phases, and then the momentum with pre-leasing allowed us to think about it in 2 different phases, and then we got more momentum, and it's pretty astounding to think about it all being open, pretty much fully leased up a year ago. When 6 years ago we were thinking about it in these bite-sized pieces. But I think Todd's right. When you develop and when you're working with architects and engineers, you're creating something static on a piece of paper, right? And then when you move into operations and things are actually starting to work, and it becomes very dynamic, and that creates challenges, not in a bad way, just in the way in which people work and interact and live. And so kind of leaning into what is this new state of Crosstown Concourse, this Better Together, as Todd mentioned, is not always easy in reality, but it's very good. You know, the social friction that we did talk about and we knew would exist is existing, and these chance encounters and these relationships are being created.
When you say social friction, and I should disclose that I live in Crosstown. I don't have any financial involvement in Crosstown, but I pay rent to live in an apartment there and down the hall from Todd. The social friction you're talking about is between sort of residents and, I mean, what people don't know, and I'll just opine here for a second, people don't realize how different it is to live upstairs on the 7th to 10th floors, and then there's the offices in the middle, and then the retail, or as my teenage daughter calls them, the tourists, downstairs. And this kind of dynamic between that is very strange, where you're all coming through the same doors, and you're all getting on the same elevators with very, very different purposes. That's right. Is that the social friction you're talking about?
Yeah, just the different reasons people are coming to the building.
Different uses. You know, if you look at other developments, you know, in a traditional way, what we would have done is dedicate one section of the building as residential, and 1 through 10 would have been residential.
Like
and
in one vertical section.
They would have had their own entrance, they would have their own elevators. And we get, literally yesterday, I got a request for an elevator to be dedicated just to residents so that other people didn't have to get on the elevators with their dogs.
That wasn't me.
I appreciate that. But we were like, no, we want a place where you have residents with their dogs getting on an elevator with an executive going to work, with a high school student going to school. That's the whole point of a vertical village. That can be a little surprising sometimes, but you hopefully get used to it and you're better for it.
Yeah. Bill.
McLean, there's another transition that's going on, and that is the financial one. Mm-hmm. You've got permanent financing at this point. Explain what you had before and what the permanent financing is for this.
So way back when, we talked about these 32 sources of financing, and mentioned earlier about the different phasing. And I mean, early on, we thought 3 different phases, maybe $150 million, and it turned that into one phase. We're going to be able to do it all at once, and it was about a $220 million project. One of the biggest challenges for the project is sustainability. That's success that Todd and I had mentioned, I know, years ago, and it's been our mantra to date, is that just getting the building open is not success. Success is looking 10 years down the future and seeing a thriving community around this one building. That was the kind of the proverbial pebble in the pond that created a ripple. Permanent financing is really important because the biggest impediment to real estate, I believe, is debt, or it's one of the biggest impediments. We were able to secure a very long-term loan, a 20-year loan with a 20-year AM, which means in 20 years the project will have 0 debt. And we were able to do it at a really great interest rate from our perspective, given where we sit right now. And being able to lock that in and knowing that 21 years from now, Crosstown Concourse will be free of debt is really exciting for us. And
you couldn't do this at the outset because these financial institutions are very conservative, and
that's right.
Not everybody could see that this was going to turn out the way it was, and not everybody had the confidence that this could happen in Memphis.
Yeah, that's right. So during construction, banks just don't want to take on the risk that they would have to step in to the place of a developer. But being able to prove out what we kind of sold them on, which was this vertical urban village, and our ability to lease up the retail and the office and the residential was a risk during development, during construction. But now that risk is more or less mitigated. And so another thing that was really interesting was 5 years ago trying to convince these financial institutions in New York and otherwise to think about Memphis at all, and to get them to even have a conversation with us, much less get on a plane and come visit. But through now the permanent financing, a lot of things that are happening in Memphis, Crosstown being one variable of many, it was a completely different conversation. Makes us pretty excited about where our city's headed.
So Todd, how often do you have people come to you now that Crosstown Concourse is open and say, you did this, I've got another very ambitious project, tell me exactly how you did this so I can follow your blueprint event for event and have the success you've had with this?
It happens often. It happens often. There's probably about once a week somebody calls or emails wanting to visit, which is great. For us, this is one big experiment. The vertical village is we hope we designed and planned for it to be a kind of microcosm of the city. Through our tenants and through the design, our hope is that when you come to Crosstown Concourse, you see Memphis coming and going, through Church Health and through Methodist and through St. Jude and Crosstown Arts. You see a real broad swath of the city. And so in that sense, it's not just co-locating. It is a village that is kind of a microcosm. And that is something that people come and see and is contagious. And so they want to try to do that elsewhere. And that's great for us because this was never just about this project. And so if this project can then help others do the same in other cities to create the kind of interconnectedness that has happened just organically across town. I mean, it's not like we designed all this in the beginning. I mean, this thing has turned out in ways that we never could have predicted. And so for those folks to come and experience that, kind of the results of a creative process, if you will, and then to use that elsewhere is wonderful. So it's always a compliment and really an honor to be able to have those conversations.
So McLean, back to you on the financing piece. So with all of this inspiration and the example of Crosstown Concourse in general, is financing more readily available for projects in general that approach this level of ambition, or is it still difficult?
I think it's still difficult. Just the way that the financial institutions look at it, they're looking at pre-leasing risk. You know, what happens if some of our bigger tenants leave? Looking at Memphis as a whole, you know, what sort of other tenants would be able to fill that. But I think, again, the ground-swelling momentum of what's happening downtown, what's happening on Broad, what's happening in the Crosstown neighborhood, it lends itself to a different conversation than we had 5 years ago. And it allows these financial institutions, these folks that don't live in Memphis, don't know about really the South, to get a lot more comfortable with placing their money in our city.
Well, I mean, to what extent you're directly involved with Central Station, the renovation downtown into a hotel and some retail, right? And then the movie theater that's going in next door. I mean, that came off the back before really Crosstown was even done, right? I mean, was that sort of you saying, boy, this is a great way, I've realized there's a great sort of business opportunity in historic buildings, or was it partly just the passion of wanting to take on a difficult project that can have a big impact on a neighborhood?
Well, I thought Todd's earlier question, answer to the question was going to be, we don't entertain those conversations about bigger projects anymore because we're not naive anymore. No, I think the Central Station project was one, you know, we had a lot of, we learned a lot at Crosstown. And to be a good steward of that learnings, you know, how do we push that forward? How do we pay that forward to some extent? Having it a complicated project in our hometown and our downtown with the hospitality roots that I have and doing a hotel, in addition to having a partner in Henry Turley. I mean, it was really another wonderful, unanticipated kind of dream to be able to do.
Just for people who don't know, your roots in hospitality are pretty deep. You are the great-grandson?
Grandson.
You're the grandson
Yeah.
of
Kemmons Wilson.
Kemmons Wilson,
Yeah.
the founder of Holiday Inn. And your family is still in the development business here and elsewhere, right?
That's right.
In the hotel business and so on.
Yeah.
Okay. When you look around, and Todd, we talk about the perception of Memphis, and there was a story sometime in the last 6 months that in the New York Times that was about renovations of buildings, Crosstown being one of them, but Tennessee Brewery, a whole bunch. I'm going to do Laughlin Yard, maybe the Central Station, Chiska, Chiska that the Carlisle family did, and it was about Memphis, you know, reinvesting in its historic properties. It was interesting. I've been in Memphis 24 years. It was great to see a story in the New York Times about Memphis that wasn't about the crime rate. I mean, what was your reaction to that, both as a co-leader of the Crosstown Project, but as an art historian, and the way they talked about the importance of historic renovation and revitalization in Memphis?
Memphis has a culture and identity for a reason. Over the course of the last 100 years, things have happened to define who we are. And one of those things that has happened is our buildings. And our buildings, like the brewery, like Chiska, like Sears Crosstown, I mean, if Memphis is America's distribution center, Sears Crosstown goes a long way in defining that identity, you know, over history. And so fortunately, in terms of development, we've moved to a time when everyone wants to be unique. It's not about going to a strip mall where you can be anywhere in America. It's about being somewhere and you know you're there and you're not anywhere else. And the way that you can do that from a real estate development is to invest in the buildings that are in your city that have been there and help to define that identity. They're unique. They don't exist anywhere else. The brewery in that form doesn't exist anywhere else. Chisca, Sears Crosstown certainly, although there we're 10 of them. But it provides a unique place where when you're in that central atrium, you're not anywhere else. And that's more than just a commodity. That's a resource that your city can literally bank on and attract people to, as opposed to attracting them to something that looks like it looks everywhere else. And so I think the article and then the multiple articles about it are recognizing this reality of how this built environment, if you will, makes a place unique, creative placemaking, if you will, and Crosstown came about really in that time period, that evolution of where creative placemaking really became a mainstream thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And one of the places too that we mentioned, and I'll go to Bill, is certainly what's going on in the medical district. And if people haven't been in there, in the beginnings of a mix of revitalization of much smaller buildings in Crosstown, or even the brewery or Central Station, and then new development, but the kind of character of that intersection at Marshall sort of spreading outward has to in some way be related to the success of Crosstown, of Central Station, of Chisca. I mean, there's this kind of virtuous circle that happens.
I mean, what's going on right now in the Edge with the Wonder Bread factory? I mean, it's in its own unique way. It's Crosstown all over again. The events and the programming and what Kat and Nick Pena are doing with the co-work space. And it's again, it's not Crosstown all over again, but it's their own unique thing. But it's a similar kind of a formula where you're getting buy-in and unique building getting renovated, and offices and residential and people coming back to a place that had been disinvested.
Yeah, Bill.
But isn't there a certain amount of pressure to build new? I mean, building new and building for specifically the tenants is easier in some ways to get financed, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's increasingly more pressure because unfortunately the incentives that that allow renovating old buildings are coming under attack, if you will. New markets tax credits, historic tax credits. But for those things, Crosstown doesn't happen.
And those are federal?
Those are federal subsidies to incentivize, renovating old buildings and then renovating in low-income census tracts that need the development the most.
Right.
And so without those things, it becomes literally impossible to do. So the pressure to build new only intensifies. Sorry, Aaron.
No, I was going to mention the tax credits, and some of those are coming under storm for sure. The other thing is just it is more complicated. It's harder. It takes longer. And that's why some of these incentives are out there to ease the pain a little bit on the capital stack from a financing standpoint. But I think you have increasing demand, and I think when there's increasing demand, people from all around, not only locally but nationally, want to participate, and they want to participate quickly. And so I think one of the dangers is them coming in and trying to build new and build something that may not stand the test of time, but they just want to take advantage of momentum. So our hope is that developers that come into downtown or other places in Memphis are just thoughtful about what they're going to build, and not just throwing something up to take advantage of the present day, but really thinking long term about not only the structure but also the architecture and what it's going to be and look like years in the future.
Is that a concern for what happens around Crosstown? Because you've both talked since the beginning of this about not just the impact of that 1.5 million square feet, but you've also talked about this as a project that has an impact in the broader area of Crosstown.
Yeah.
So is there a concern that, this gets going really good and all of a sudden the neighborhood changes dramatically and not necessarily for the better?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say there's three things. One is we had the Midtown overlay extended to cover Crosstown, the Cleveland Street corridor. So the same, guidelines. I don't know. I would call them restrictions, but guidelines that help with Midtown are also at Crosstown as well. We've got, pretty controversial conversation going on right now related to historic districts. Cooper Young, and then
Speedway Terrace,
is there
is right
as well.
next to Crosstown.
Literally right next to Crosstown. I get it. I get both sides. There's restrictions placed on people who want to develop, but there's also people in the neighborhood who want to retain the character of what's been there for decades. And so there's got to be a compromise there. And the other way, we don't own any property outside the site of Crosstown, but Crosstown Arts, through its mission for the neighborhood, leases about 38,000 square feet. And so we've always seen the business corridor on Cleveland from Concourse to Overton Park Overton Park Avenue is kind of the arms of the building. And so when we moved from from those storefronts into the building, we then sublease now to Urban Arts and Levitt Shell, and there's a couple of artist studios there as well, the High Tone, and a few other new tenants are coming in as well that buy into the neighborhood and the community aspect of it, wanting to keep it its character.
Mm-hmm. When we talk about the changing for the neighborhood, maybe for the worse, is gentrification. And there's someone who just did a movie about, and I'm just drawing a blank on the name, did a movie about gentrification. Someone who had went from Memphis, moved to Portland, and saw the gentrification. I have family out there, and it's great to go to Portland and you see this incredible amount of development, these new neighborhoods going up, but they're also incredibly expensive and they push people out. Mm-hmm. I used to live in New York and Manhattan, and it's very strange to be there now. It's really beautiful and it's great, and all the neighborhoods there are no rough neighborhoods, but it's kind of like you can just feel it. They pushed people out. Mm. Do you consider that, as you've gone down to Central Station and you maybe other projects you might do in downtown in rougher, less developed, but affordable or inexpensive neighborhoods, how much does the fear of gentrification come into your calculation?
Yeah, I think it's always a fear because we don't control everything around us. At Crosstown, we made a conscious decision not to go buy a bunch of property early on, and kind of by faith and by process let things evolve as they need to evolve. And but with Crosstown in particular, and to some extent at Central Station, the way in which we curated the tenants, who we recruited, how we attempted to really allow the building to look and feel like Memphis as a whole, as Todd mentioned earlier, that was one of our ways in which we attempted to allow for a gentrification, if you want to use that word, in a way that was in keeping with Memphis. And so, because of the tenants that we have, because of the various numbers of other citizens that would be coming to the building to participate with the different organizations or get health care or what have you, we are creating an environment that really is for all of Memphis, not just a select few of Memphians. And so that hopefully then attracts a very diverse crowd to the neighborhood and allows for maintaining diversity, not exclusivity.
Yeah, and I will say, and I mentioned at the top of the show that I do live there. Again, I don't have any financial involvement other than paying rent, but it is, I tell everyone, it's the most diverse neighborhood I've lived in since I lived in Brooklyn 26 years ago. Yeah. It just clearly, it's just, the diversity is really striking when you're in there. Just a couple of minutes left, Bill.
All right, so what's happening in Speedway Terrace and what's happening to the north of it that is related to how Crosstown Concourse fares? Are you involved in that to any degree?
We are involved. Portia Stevens, who's our community relations coordinator, is really involved. She's a founding board member of the new Crosstown CDC that really tries to make sure that voices are organized and heard when they need to be heard, and because there is a lot of development happening both on the retail corridor and the residential. So it's really keeping a finger on the pulse of what's happening, because a lot of times those things just happen and nobody ever knows about it. Property was sold at a tax sale, and then all of a sudden something's happening, and so these folks keep up with what's going on. There's a lot of development in Speedway Terrace, a lot of renovation of homes. Evergreen, has always been a great neighborhood, and the values of those properties are going up as well. In terms of residential, Crosstown with the apartments almost doubled the census tracts that make up the Crosstown neighborhood in terms of population. So it's a push and a pull. It's a great thing that building's not empty. 1.5 million square feet that was abandoned and empty for 20 years. There's now 2,500 people coming and going every day. That's a good thing, particularly when it's those people who are coming and going, such a diverse group of folks. But that also creates a lot of challenges as well that we just have to live into.
Sure.
Quick, just with less than a minute left, the theater is beginning to
Arts,
open.
The restaurant and the bar and the theater are coming online this fall. So 425 seat performing arts theater dedicated to independent film and live music.
And it is. I got in there for a little preview of the sound. But it got some kind of rating on sound that you told me.
Yeah, it's a space that you can record in. So we really tried to design the acoustics and the space to be really a premier performance and recording space in Memphis.
And before anyone thinks that, with 15 seconds left, I remember 2-3 months after I moved in, 10 o'clock at night, running into you on the 7th floor, and you were moving signage around. Yeah. So if this sounds like a highfalutin job, and you are a co-leader, co-founder of this, it was the funniest moment where you're moving this sign, you got your dog on a leash. Yeah. There's the glory right now of celebrating a year, but there's also all that hard work. So thanks for being here. Thank you, Bill, and thank you for joining us. Join us again next week.